They laughed behind my back, called me just another black girl with big dreams and no shot. But guess what? I didn't just beat the odds, I became the woman the world never saw coming. And the best part? I didn't just find success. I found love in a place no one expected. Hi, I'm sharing my story because I know someone out there needs to hear it. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or told you're not enough, this is for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with every woman who needs to be reminded of her worth. Growing up in a small town felt like living inside a glass box. People could see you, but they didn't really see you. From a young age, I was told, sometimes in words and sometimes in looks, to stay in my lane. I didn't always know what that meant at first, but I could feel it. Like when I'd raise my hand in class and the teacher would call on someone else. Or when I'd talk about wanting to be a designer or run my own business one day, and folks would smile that tight, polite smile. The kind that says, "Oh, that's cute," but they don't believe you'll ever leave the block you grew up on. Even in my own family, I felt it. Not because they didn't love me, but because they were tired. Tired of dreaming and getting nothing back. They'd say things like, "Just get a steady job. Don't aim too high. Life's already hard." And I understand now that came from fear, from experience. But as a child, it sounded like a warning. You're not meant for more. In school, I blended into the background. I wasn't the smartest, the prettiest, or the most popular. I was just there. I never got picked first for anything, sports, projects, even birthday parties. I learned early on how to disappear in plain sight, and it hurt. Not because I wanted to be famous or special, but because I wanted to be seen. Just once. Still, something in me refused to settle. I'd lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling, dreaming of a life where people clapped for me when I walked in the room. A life where I mattered. I didn't know how I'd get there, I just knew somehow I would. Even if they all laughed when I said it out loud, I remember the first time I truly felt the sting of rejection. It wasn't even about love or money. It was something simple. I applied for a leadership program at school. I spent days on that application, pouring my heart into every word. I thought maybe, just maybe, this was my chance to be seen. When the list came out, my name wasn't there. Not even as an alternate. I asked one of the teachers why, and she said, "You're not really the leadership type." That sentence stuck to my skin like glue. It didn't stop there. I started applying for scholarships, summer internships, anything that felt like a step forward. Rejection emails piled up. Some didn't even bother to reply. I watched classmates with lighter skin, better connections, or more polished shoes get opportunities I knew I'd worked harder for. I kept telling myself it was just bad luck. But deep down, I knew what it really was. Then came the rejection that cut even deeper. A boy I liked, someone I thought saw me, told his friends I was too loud and too much, and that I wasn't really his type. His type, of course, was always quiet, soft-spoken, and didn't look like me. That hurt in a different way. It made me question not just my abilities, but my worth. Those moments started to change me. I began to pull back. I stopped speaking up in class. I stopped sharing my ideas. I thought if I stayed small, I'd hurt less. But what really happened is, I started losing myself. And in that silence, something inside me began to grow, not anger, not bitterness, but a quiet, stubborn spark. I wasn't sure what it meant yet, but I knew one thing. I couldn't live invisible forever. One night, I came home from another long shift bussing tables. My feet ached, my back hurt, and my spirit felt heavier than my uniform. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, still in my apron, and cried. Not soft tears either, real, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deep. I wasn't crying because of that one bad day. I was crying because I'd been carrying years of quiet disappointment, rejection, and this heavy feeling that I was never going to be enough. And then I looked in the mirror, really looked. My eyes were swollen, face streaked with tears, but there was still a flicker there. A trace of the little girl who used to dream big and speak loud. I stared at her and whispered, "I'm done waiting for someone to pick me." That was my turning point. I didn't have a perfect plan, but I had a decision. I was going to choose me every single day, from that moment forward. I started small. I woke up an hour earlier and watched free videos on business, branding, and mindset. I'd write my goals down on sticky notes and tape them to my wall. I took every odd job I could find, babysitting, braiding hair, running errands, just to save a little here and there. I kept my head down, but my heart up. Every time I made even a tiny step forward, I celebrated it like a victory. People didn't notice the change right away, but inside I felt it. I stopped asking for permission. I stopped shrinking. For the first time, I wasn't chasing approval. I was building something, even if no one else could see it yet. I was choosing myself, and that changed everything. Starting a business with nothing but determination sounds romantic until you're actually living it. I didn't have investors, connections, or even a laptop at first. What I did have was a corner in my bedroom, a phone with cracked glass, and a heart full of hustle. I began by doing what I knew, braiding hair on weekends, making custom earrings, even selling thrifted clothes online. Every bit of money I earned, I reinvested. No new shoes, no takeout, no vacations. Just me, my grind, and the dream I refused to give up on. At first, people didn't take me seriously. Some clients cancelled last minute. Others tried to talk down my prices. A few even made slick comments, stuff like, "Oh, I didn't expect you to be the owner." But I kept showing up. I treated every customer like they were my only one. I made sure every package I shipped looked like a gift. Slowly, people started talking. My Instagram got some traction, then came referrals, then came repeat orders. One day, I woke up to find my small shop completely sold out. That was the first time I truly felt proud of myself. Not because I made money, but because I proved to me that I could do it. Each small win added a brick to the foundation of my confidence. I was no longer just trying to survive. I was building something real. My confidence didn't come all at once. It grew slowly, with every challenge I overcame, with every time I stood up for myself and said, "No, this is my worth." I wasn't waiting to be seen anymore. I was making sure I couldn't be ignored. I wasn't just anything anymore. I was a businesswoman, and I was just getting started. I wasn't looking for love when I met him. Honestly, love was the last thing on my mind. I was focused on growing my business, finding stability, and trying to prove, mostly to myself, that I could create a life worth being proud of. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. We met at a local networking event I almost didn't attend. I was tired, unsure, and feeling out of place in a room full of people who didn't look like me or come from where I came from. He approached me casually, like he already knew me. Not in a creepy way, but with a calm energy that caught me off guard. He asked about my business, not what I sold, but why I started it. No one had ever asked me that before. We ended up talking for almost an hour, right there by the snack table, and for the first time in a long time, I felt heard. I didn't know who he was, didn't know he had money, influence, or any of that. He wasn't flashy, he just made me feel seen. And I didn't have to shrink myself. I could talk about my hustle, my late nights, my vision, and he actually listened. Still, I kept my guard up. I'd been burned before. I knew how quickly interest could turn into judgment, but he didn't disappear. He followed up. He showed up. Not with grand gestures, but with consistency. Text to check in. Encouragement when I doubted myself. Respect without conditions. Part of me kept wondering, what's the catch? But the other part, the part that was finally learning to receive, felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Not the loud, dramatic kind. The quiet kind that says, "You're safe here." Even with all his kindness, I struggled to let him all the way in. I wish I could say I welcomed love with open arms, But the truth is, I questioned everything. I questioned him. I questioned myself. Deep down, I didn't believe someone like me could be loved for who I truly was. Not after everything I'd heard growing up, not after years of being overlooked, not after being told I was too strong, too ambitious, too much. So I started pushing him away in small ways. I'd cancel plans last minute, pretend I was too busy, make jokes when things got serious. I told myself I was protecting my peace, but really I was protecting my wounds. I kept waiting for the moment he'd show me he wasn't who I thought he was. I waited for the judgment, the distance, the disrespect I'd learned to expect. But it never came. Instead, he gave me patience. He didn't try to fix me, rush me, or silence me. One night, I finally broke down. I told him everything: the insecurity, the shame, the fear of not being enough. I expected silence, maybe even pity, but he just looked at me and said, "That's the woman I admire most." Something shifted in me after that. I realized love isn't about someone saving you. It's about someone seeing you fully and still choosing to stay. I didn't have to shrink or pretend. I didn't have to prove anything. I could just be, and that was enough. Learning to accept love wasn't easy. It was messy and vulnerable. But it taught me that I didn't have to carry my past into every new chapter. I was allowed to feel worthy. I was allowed to be loved deeply and freely. And finally, I was ready. Once I stopped fighting love and started letting it in, something amazing happened. Everything else in my life began to grow too. My business, once just a side hustle, started gaining real momentum. Orders poured in, I got featured in a local magazine, and people began calling me a young mogul. It still makes me smile thinking about it, because just a few years before, no one even remembered my name. He was there through all of it, but not in a way that overshadowed me. He didn't try to take over or control things. Instead, he amplified my voice. When I doubted myself before a big pitch, he reminded me of all the wins I'd already earned. When I had to make tough decisions, he'd listen, not lecture. It was the kind of partnership I never believed could be real. We became a team, but not just in business or romance, in life. He brought his skills. He was good with numbers, strategy, and organization. I brought creativity, grit, and heart. Together, we made moves that once felt impossible. We bought our first home together, not one he gave me, but one we built side by side. My name was on everything, and not because of charity, but because I earned it. I started getting invitations to speak at women's events, to mentor young black girls who saw themselves in my story. I used to be the girl no one believed in. Now I was the example someone else needed. And people noticed. The same ones who once looked past me now whispered, "Isn't that her?" when I walked by. But the truth is, I didn't do it for recognition. I did it for the little girl inside me who once thought she'd never be enough. Now she knows she always was. There's something powerful about walking into a room and no longer being underestimated. These days, when I enter a space, whether it's a boardroom, boutique event, or even just brunch, people look at me differently. Not because of what I wear or how I talk, but because I carry myself with something I never had before: certainty. The world didn't change overnight. I did. And that shift made all the difference. The same people who once doubted me now invite me to collaborate. Some even ask for advice. Funny how that works. The girl they once told to stay in her lane is now paving her own. I see the surprise on their faces, the curiosity in their tone, but I don't carry bitterness. I've learned that sometimes people can only see you through the limits of their own imagination. That was never my problem to carry. What matters most to me now isn't the attention, it's the impact. It's when a young black woman comes up to me and says, "I watched your story, and now I believe I can do it too." That's worth more than any money or praise. That's legacy. Of course, I still get judged. There are still rooms where I'm the only one who looks like me. But now I sit at the table with my head high, knowing I belong, not because I changed who I was, but because I stayed true to her. The loud, ambitious, overlooked girl they thought would never make it. She made it, and she didn't lose herself in the process. Now I don't just demand respect, I command it. Not through ego, but through presence, through proof, through purpose. The world finally sees me. But more importantly, I see me. And I'll never let her disappear again. Sometimes I sit quietly with a cup of tea in my hands, looking out the window, and I think back to that little girl who used to feel invisible, the one who sat in the back of the class, who got passed over, talked down to, and made to feel like her dreams were too loud. That girl still lives in me. But now she's proud. I used to chase validation, trying to prove to the world that I was worth something. Now I move with the confidence of someone who knows her worth isn't up for debate. I've learned that being too much was never the problem. It was always the answer. My ambition, my voice, my passion, my roots, they were never things to hide. They were the very things that led me here. What changed wasn't the world. It was the way I saw myself. I stopped begging to be seen and started seeing myself. Fully, boldly, unapologetically. And once I did that, everything else followed. My business took off, love found me, peace became my home, and the life I once only dreamed of became my reality. I'm no longer trying to fit into spaces that weren't made for me. I'm creating my own. I've gone from invisible to irresistible, not because of money or attention, but because I finally embraced the magic that was in me all along. To every girl who's ever been told she wasn't enough, let this be your reminder. You are not here to shrink. You are here to shine. They thought I had no chance. Now I'm the love story, the success story, the whole story. And this is only the beginning. I'm living proof that your past doesn't define you. Your power does, and you already have it. If you're out there thinking it's too late or you're too invisible, don't you dare give up. You're not just a face or a label, you're a story waiting to be told. Like this video, share it, and drop a comment if you're ready to be your own success story. Remember, they may doubt you now, but one day they'll say they knew you.